Welcome into the Gamblin Gauchos. I'm Rob Bro. He's Money Mainville. Not a lot to talk about today between the two of us. Money, do you have anything pressing that you want to discuss?
No, I can't really think of anything.
No big news we want to bring up or any pressing returns. I bought some pants on the internet this week. I'll probably return those when the right style for me. They were cargo pants, and I was like, maybe if I get them and try them on, but then here's a comment I was told Kyle would be on. Love you, Rob. I'm sure he loves you too, Money. No other returns that we can think of?
I think Luke actually said this would be the first week that he would be listening in a few months. So he's already here in the comments. Should we give him something to listen to?
Yeah, let's do it. We'll talk about the biggest return of the week. Who's back?
It's Kyle. Let's go. What's up, boys?
Nothing. Nothing's going on. It's peak off season, but we're glad you're back, Kyle. And the people are too. I've been getting inundated with messages. Where's Kyle? When's Kyle coming back? There were some nasty rumors about a death that happened. Maybe you had been murdered by someone. And we just want to disprove all of them.
Yeah, well, y'all might remember my last episode before retirement, which we'll touch on in a minute. The clanking in the kitchen was so loud that I was certain it was being done on purpose. And I didn't get into this on the pod at the time, but it was being done on purpose to send a message. I was like, hey, can we talk about this later? I'm doing my last podcast ever, trying to go out on a high note here. Like, can you be mad at me in like an hour when I'm done? My wife said yes. So not like an entirely implausible theory that, she finished the job after I got done recording that episode. But no, I'm alive and well. This is the real me, not an AI generated version. So it's good to be back. I can't promise that I won't be a little rusty. I came in here and was like setting up, realized that I didn't have the microphone plugged in. And I thought I was set up again and realized I was like, don't I normally wear headphones when we're doing this? And decided to like find the headphones. So anyway, we'll see how it goes. I'm a little nervous, and I didn't ever used to be nervous before we did podcasts, but it might take me a few times to get back in the swing of things.
I had forgotten about the dishes incident. That's one of my all-time favorite moments in podcast history. The not only the clanking in the background, but your reaction to them, and then what I can only imagine happened when you left the room briefly and came back.
Yeah, the first one was like, okay, just try to ignore it, just talk through it. The second time was like, okay, like you've made your point. And then the third time I was like, okay, I've got to go out here and put a stop to this before we're just listening to this for the next 30 minutes.
So good. So good. We've had a lot of good moments together, but that was a good one.
That was fun.
And we've had a lot of moments.
Y'all are like over there trying not to laugh.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what else can you do about it but laugh?
Yeah.
All right. So the three amigos back again. Money, Kyle. Where have you been, Kyle? Do you want to share what you went off to in your sabbatical, or maybe some things you missed while you were gone?
Sure. As you know, I don't really do bits. I just like the straightforward analysis. So I'm going to allow the listener a peek behind the curtain in a moment. But before I do, I want to give a sincere, heartfelt thank you to both of you plus Tech Hoops Guy for keeping this train rolling. Not that it was ever dependent on me by any stretch, but I know that I kind of left y'all at a point in time that isn't the most fun, or you don't have as many natural news stories as you do at other points during the year. Especially Tech Hoops Guy kind of just stepping in off the street. And I really enjoyed listening to the podcast when I'm not on it. I wonder how many people are tuning in. They're like, crap, this guy's back. I also enjoyed it when he wasn't on there, but y'all kept me entertained. So anyway, thank you for, I don't even want to say filling in because it's y'all's show too, but for just doing such a great job while I was out. Now, folks will remember when we were filling out our bracket, I was starting to envision a path to the Final Four in which Texas Tech has a 6 seed, was going to be favored in game one, which they were, I think, by 6.5, 5.5, if I remember right. Win as a favorite, Game 2, I thought it was going to be against Kentucky. Wound up, it would have been against a 14 seed, but my thought process was Kentucky has kind of become, I don't even want to say chokers in the NCAA tournament, but they're just always young. They're always a bunch of first-year guys besides Oscar Tshiebwe, and so they've struggled in the tournament against all these teams with super seniors that have played, 4 or 5 years of Mountain West or Power 6 basketball. And so I thought, okay, whether Oakland pulls off the upset or whether we get Kentucky, like not out of the realm at all that we go to the Sweet 16. And I think by that point we would have been matched up with, I can't remember who. Maybe it was Marquette, and I was thinking, Shaka chokes, or maybe it was Duke. No. Duke was playing Houston on the other side.
Yeah, it's Marquette.
That's what it was. Yeah, I was like, it's either Rick Barnes or Marquette, or it's a coach that's going to choke. So I was like, I'm not worried about the Sweet 16 matchup. And then I think Elite Eight was in Dallas,
Yes.
and Rob, you and your nephew know how hard it is to beat the same opponent so many times in a season. And I was like, if they let us in front of Dallas, Houston doesn't have any fans. We're going to fill out that arena and finally get these guys. Wasn't us. It was Duke. And unfortunately, Jamal Shedd got hurt. You don't want to see any team lose because their best player got hurt or because anybody got hurt. But NC State gets all the way. They beat Duke, right? They beat their, I guess not number 1 rival, but number 2 rival for a spot in the Final Four or the Elite Eight. How far did they go, Money?
Final Four.
Okay, so did I whiff on the take? Yes, badly, because we lost round 1 and I was charting a path to the Final Four. But the team that beat us, that we were favored to beat, is wound up in the spot that I thought we might have an okay chance to get to. So tying this loop together, I think it wasn't the craziest thing. In one sense, I got the take as wrong as I could have because we lost round 1. But kind of got the second closest outcome, save us going to the Elite Eight or the Sweet 16 or something, because it kind of, the path sort of did work out like I thought it might. It was just NC State instead of us going all the way. So did I actually think we're going to make the Final Four? No, I thought, I don't know, 5 or 10% chance. So I was setting it up so that either I would have to be a liar and retire after we go to the Final Four anyway, or was just going to retire on what was certainly the most likely outcome, that we weren't going to go to the Final Four. So the reason I retired was because my wife and I had a son in April, knew that was coming down the pike, needed the last few weeks after the tournament to prep for that. And then, of course, the immediate aftermath, I was just not going to have time to do podcasting, social media, writing, all that good stuff. So I set it up in a way, this is the peek behind the curtain that I referenced, where I knew I was going to have to step away from the show for at least a few months anyway. And so I tied it to kind of an outlandish prediction that, I don't know, maybe it wasn't that crazy after all. So anyway, that's, did I retire? Yes. And well, how are you back if you retired? Well, a lot of people retire and then come back. Ask Tom Brady, Brett Favre, Michael Jordan, Jimmy Johnson. It happens. So I retired, and now I'm back from retirement. So I kept my word, and now I'm coming out of retirement.
People do say all the time, Kyle, that you're the Michael Jordan of podcasting.
But I was trying to think of an example of some, left guard who came out of retirement, but nobody makes a big deal out of it unless it's Brett Favre, Michael Jordan. So I was trying to think of a really humble example of, some guy nobody had ever heard of that came out of retirement, but I feel like it either doesn't make. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Got it. The Chiefs guard who retired to go be a doctor for a season during COVID and then tried to come back. Well, he didn't really stick, but Laurent Tardif Duvernay, something like that.
That's close. I know who you're talking about.
Tardif Duvernay of podcasting.
Yes, that's a great comp. I've always said I'm just like that guy. But yeah, I feel like if you're good enough to get to a retirement age and you can choose your own exit, you're either a legend, or if you're a guy who's getting cut at age 30, 31, then it's not really retirement if the market is choosing that for you. So I was struggling to find some backup shooting guard who retired and then came out of retirement and couldn't. All the examples I could think of were all pro guys. but it's good to be back, and I appreciate y'all letting me retire for a few months so I could help raise a family for a little bit.
Anytime, and we're proud of you for now the Gauchito and Gauchito.
Yeah, I got one of each now.
Laurent Duvernay Tardif retired for a season that came back with the Jets for 2. So there you go. Go Jets. Money, before Kyle gets going into some of the stuff he's missed, hit us up with the Fighting Grant McCaslin's FIBA championship. They beat who they beat today? Argentina?
I believe so.
Is that it seemed inevitable. Is that a big deal that we did that as a Team USA?
It's good when it happens. It's embarrassing when it doesn't. So,
hey, you know what they say. All right, that was FIBA basketball.
that's pretty much all I got.
Yeah. Kyle, what did Money and I miss while you were gone? Do you have a list of things we missed?
Yeah, I'm going to start kind of in the spirit of Festivus in July, in June. Pretty early in my retirement, I'm going to go in chronological order as best I can here. Pretty early during my retirement, I did a master's pool with our friend Chuck. And I don't follow golf. I don't have a clue what I'm doing. I just pick however many names he tells me to pick. I usually wind up, bottom 4th of that pool. I was in the hunt this year. I was like 2nd or 3rd for most of the weekend. I got 4th, and if I could appeal this to the Supreme Court, I would. There were no tiebreaker scenarios outlined that I'm aware of. I tied for 4th. I should have made some money. I think I had the highest scoring round, the highest scoring player over this other guy. I don't even know what the tiebreaker was that Chuck made up to screw me out of being in the money. So I got 5th, which is still way better than I've ever done before, and I'm proud of that. Hang the banner. But I should have made some money there. I feel like Chuck owes me, I don't know if it was maybe $40 or $80, but I have not gotten over that. Also on golf, I think everybody has seen the body cam footage now. Scotty Scheffler. I think he needs to go to jail for a long, long time, like at least until the prime of Ludwig Aberg's career is through. I think that's a fair punishment.
Yep.
You can't disobey law and order so egregiously. So lock Scotty up. Y'all know this. For a long time, I was resigned to the fate that my Vikings were going to draft JJ McCarthy in the 1st round. And Rob, you can go back to, I think, December or whatever, when the mock drafts first started coming out, and they were talking about JJ McCarthy in the 1st round. And I was like, somebody made a mistake, right? Like it's a typo, or like clearly this guy's not going in the 1st round, right? No, wrong. Like he was in the 1st round of every mock draft I ever saw. And it's like, oh, he's climbing, he's top 10. Oh, he might be the number 2 pick. That was a narrative for like 1 week, was that, hey, the Redskins are looking at, they might not pick Jaden Daniels, or they might go JJ McCarthy at 2.
Yeah, I know you've been gone a while, but they call them the Commanders now.
That's right. Okay. Yeah. Commanders, my bad. I'm going to get canceled my first show back.
Yeah.
Who is this racist they brought on here? Okay. And so the whole time I'm thinking, well, no, okay, not the whole time. It was after the Vikings made a trade maybe a month before the draft. I think they traded, I don't remember what, but it was to acquire pick 11 and 25 in the 1st round of this year's draft. And every draft analyst was like, they're going to package those picks, plus next year's they're going to move up and go get JJ McCarthy at 3 or at 4. And I'm thinking, if we're moving up to 3, it better be Drake May. And I actually would have been fine using multiple firsts on Drake May. But they had me scared to death, especially when they're talking about Washington taking McCarthy at 2. I was like, we're gonna trade 4 first-round picks to go up to number 2 to take a guy that I don't think is like better than a 3rd or 4th rounder. Now, silver lining, they wound up only moving 1 spot from 11 to 10 to take him. Still wouldn't have even done that, to be honest with you. I wouldn't have taken him at 11. That was during the run, if y'all remember. I think if 15 offensive players went off the board before the first defensive player. Hey, sitting at 11, you can have the number 1 defensive player in the draft. Any interest? No. We need JJ McCarthy. Okay, fine. So I don't know. I could see it coming from a mile away. He was mocked to the Vikings everywhere. It's just a matter of like how much are we going to trade up to get him. So I at least admire that they didn't trade next year's first round pick and all this for it. But dude, when they traded up to get Christian Ponder in I think 2010 or 2011. And I just remember that, like, I'm not a pro at this. I'm not an expert talent evaluator, but Christian Ponder, like, if you're drafting a guy at that spot in the draft, I mean, you're thinking top 10 picks here. Like, you want this guy to be Peyton Manning. You want him to be, who else is a top 10 pick? Mahomes, Josh Allen, guys like that. And I just never got that vibe from Christian freaking Ponder, and I don't get it from JJ McCarthy. To me, it's like, anytime they talk about how good he is, it's this real vague platitude about like leadership, intangibles. He's a winner. Like, is he a winner, or was he on the best team? Because I watched the national championship game, and they were leading most of the way, maybe the whole way, wire to wire. But when it was still in question, when they're up by 6 or 10 and trying to put the nail in the coffin, they were not leaning on JJ McCarthy to do it. It was like, hand the ball off, 3rd and 6, whatever, hand the ball off and we'll punt. And so Jim Harbaugh's telling me that JJ McCarthy is like the best quarterback in school history. If you don't know, Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time, also suited up for the Wolverines. So like, that's Harbaugh sitting here telling me that McCarthy is better than the best players ever played. Now, mind you, Jim Harbaugh didn't draft him. He didn't trade away Justin Herbert to take JJ McCarthy. And I'm watching, and I'm like, you were calling plays, or at least you're the CEO of the guy who's calling plays at Michigan. You didn't put the game in his hands. He's that good. Why didn't he average more than 200 yards passing for Michigan? And I get it's a run-first offense, but like 200 is a pretty low bar to clear. So I was tremendously disappointed in the pick. I would love to be wrong. There is some data out there about his efficiency, both like inside the pocket and outside the pocket, that kind of piqued my interest, that made me think, okay, maybe he is the number 2 quarterback in his draft class behind Caleb Williams. But I don't know, man. I saw like a fair amount of Michigan, or at least Michigan highlights, and I just never thought, man, that guy is a unique talent. It pops off the screen. Whichever franchise it gets him is going to be so lucky. And you can say what you want about some of these other guys that were busts or huge hits. At least with Mahomes, like, you could make a case even before – you can make a case for or against Mahomes. And people get cold takes exposed on Mahomes because you had analysts talking about like his footwork and, oh, they went 5 and 7. And like, those are kind of fair points. But then you also see throws that nobody else besides like Aaron Rodgers, college or pro, is making. And you go, okay, if we can hone in on that, at least we know the high-end talent is there. I didn't see a single throw on JJ McCarthy's tape where I go, wow, he's the only guy in this draft class that can make that throw. He's the only guy in the last 3 draft classes that can make that throw. You just think, okay, bus driver for the national champion. Like, I don't see anything different than Stetson Bennett on JJ McCarthy's tape. He's Matt Leinart to me. He's AJ McCarron.
Yeah, is that a negative in today's NFL that you can rely? Well, I guess you don't really have a running game there in Minnesota either. So, yeah, never mind. I was trying to help there.
I kind of thought when the Falcons took Penix, which, by the way, weird pick. I would have ranted on that for a long time if I was on the podcast. Yep. I kind of thought, okay, the market, at least one team in the market, is telling you that Penix is better than JJ McCarthy. Like, to me, if I'm a scout or a GM about to basically stake my career, or at least my current job, on JJ McCarthy at number 10, it makes me second guess, okay, if not only did Jaden Daniels, Drake May, obviously Caleb Williams, and Michael Penix go before our guy, like, maybe we should take the best defensive player in the draft class and kind of make the safer pick. I guess in that sense, it's gutsy, it's ballsy. Like, they've clearly had their eyes on him for a long time, and they were acquiring assets to trade up if they needed to. The people with a lot more skin in the game than me went all in on it. I really hope that they're right, and I look like an idiot for saying that he's Stetson Bennett. But I'm just putting that out there, that I never saw anything on his tape that made me think, oh, there's a Justin Herbert throw, a Josh Allen throw, a Patrick Mahomes throw, an Aaron Rodgers throw. I don't see that elite top-of-the-line talent. I see, like, maybe a ceiling of Kirk Cousins, but you already had Kirk Cousins, and you decided you didn't want him anymore. And, like, yeah, he commands a much greater salary than JJ McCarthy as a rookie, But like to me, Kirk Cousins, unless you have an elite defense or elite weapons or whatever, is not a Super Bowl winning caliber quarterback. Like you need to be shooting for a higher ceiling than Kirk Cousins. I don't think you aim for Kirk Cousins. You aim for a higher ceiling. If you land at Kirk Cousins, maybe you can still win, but you don't trade up into the top 10 to take Kirk Cousins.
You're trying to find a Dak Prescott.
Yeah. Okay, that's enough about JJ McCarthy, but I hate that pick. I'm on record. Okay, I'm going to save. We might have a couple of special. Here's a Patreon plug. We might have a couple special episodes where absolute gutter, hot take, first take style episode. I'm going to argue with one of our picadors about. I think we're doing MJ LeBron with Pancho Loco, and I think we're doing Dak plus Luca plus me and Bill Walton's kid.
Yeah, I can't wait for that one.
That could go 6 hours. I don't know. So if you want the chance to debate me in a podcast, join us on Patreon, patreon.com/Gamblin Gauchos. It's only $5 a month. You get one episode per week, some written content, access to the Discord. And who knows, if you argue with me enough in the Discord, you might get invited to go full Skip Bayless with me on an episode. Quick take here, lightning round. I put in the mailbag, is Drew Brees overrated, underrated, properly rated? I think slightly overrated. The stats are there, but they were kind of throwing more before everybody else was throwing more. I think one ring with that head coach with some of the surrounding talent, a little bit underwhelming. It's hard to get one ring. Marino doesn't even have one. Aaron Rodgers only has one. I think he's one of the most talented guys to ever play the position. But we talked about Brees for a while there. It was like, oh, Brady, Manning, Brees, and I don't think he's up there. So I'm going slightly overrated. My Timberwolves, a little tough end of the season, but at least we were in a position to have a tough end of the season. The last time they made it this far, guys, I was in fifth grade, I think fourth or fifth grade, and Mark Madsen, who's now the head coach at Cal, coaching up Jalen Tyson and Fardal Zamak out there. He was actually a key figure on the team we had. Now the core was Kevin Garnett, Sam Cassell, Latrell Sprewell, Wally Zerbiak shooting threes, if you remember him. But Mark Madsen's job was to foul out intentionally and put Shaq at the free throw line as often as possible. They called it Hack a Shaq. And if you can believe it, featuring Mark Madsen as a focal point of your strategy in the Western Conference Finals against Shaq and Kobe didn't quite work. We didn't win that series. That's as far as we've ever gotten till this year. I guess we tied it. Still pretty proud of the team. I mean, they knocked out the former champs, the 3-time, 4-time MVP, however many times Jokic has won it. I think they kind of had to I think they were running on E after that win over the Nuggets. And that's not an excuse. That's just that was such a monumental mountaintop to get over that feels like they sort of ran out of juice a little bit against the Mavs. Mavs won games 1 and 2 that were pretty close in Minnesota. Luka's just a freaking clutch as hell dog. So sucked in that way, but I was proud of them for getting that far. They're in salary cap hell now. They have to pay Gobert, Karl Anthony Towns. So I don't know if those two have that dog in them. Anthony Edwards, though, age 22. That's pretty good getting to the Western Conference Finals at age 22. The other two, I don't know. But at least they have a guy to build around now. Any thoughts on my Wolves? I know y'all were pulling hard for them too, right?
No, we were not. I do love Anthony Edwards. I think he needs a new nickname, but I do love Anthony Edwards.
You don't like Ant-Man?
Not really.
It's pretty basic. Okay, here's one, and y'all have probably done this a little bit. I don't feel like any of you came out as hard on this as I am about to, but baseball had a down year, right?
Yep.
Tim Tadlock, this was what? If we don't count COVID, this was season 11 at the helm. So more than a third of the time you're going to Omaha. I think we got bounced in one super. So 5 out of 11, basically half, you're going to the super or better. I think we only got eliminated in one home regional, and then we were regional finalists in Statesboro and Gainesville last year. Then we missed in 15, no tournament in 20 because of COVID, and we missed this year.
It got bounced in a super against Stanford.
Yeah, that's the only super that we've lost, though, right?
In the Tadlock era, yes.
Right. Yeah. So I think on the men's side, Wes Kitley, unquestionably the most successful head coach in school history. On the women's side, Marcia Sharp, unquestionably the best coach in school history. Third place, men's or women's, any sport, any era. Is it somebody other than Tim Tadlock?
No, I would say no. I mean, you didn't see BCS success from Spike or Mike. You had the great career elsewhere from Bob Knight, but not a ton of success past the Sweet 16 with Bob Knight. If Beard had stayed for another 5 years, you're probably in that conversation. But yeah, I would put Tadlock at third. I mean, even in their early football success, you didn't have a lot of longevity from guys, even when they had peak years.
I feel like we didn't. And I'll preface this by saying I don't think that the majority opinion is like fire Tadlock or anything. But I think there's people who are like, oh, well, Tadlock needs to run it this way. He needs to fire these assistants. Or Tadlock needs to do this with NIL. Tadlock needs to, like, people trying to tell Tadlock how to coach. And I get it. Like, I'm a take artist. I get on the podcast all the time and tell you what play Zach Hilley should have called or whatever. And, like, could I do a better job as head coach than Matt Wells? No. But there's sort of an expectation of the standard that Matt Wells is at when you pay him $4 million and make him the head coach of a Power 5 program. And I don't think any of the criticism we levied against him was unfair to say, hey, he's not living up to that standard. But it's quite the other thing to look at the third greatest coach in any sport in school history who has gotten to Omaha, which 8 out of 300-something teams, it makes you a top 2.5% program nationally. He's done that 4 times. That, like, 1 year of missing the postseason, people are, like, typing on their phones, sitting on their couch about how we need to run things instead. It's just asinine to me. It's like me telling Sydney Sweeney how to improve her beauty routine or something. Like, I get it when we're talking about a program that's never sniffed success or is on a 5-year downslide or whatever. But I think losing in the regional final last year to a team that wound up being runner-up and the whole thing, like, you're runner-up to them in their house, and then the year before that, you're runner-up to a team that knocks out Tennessee, the number 1 overall seed in the Super Regional in Knoxville. I'm not trying to do, like, translatable quality losses, but to me, those aren't bad seasons. Now, any criticism of Tim Tadlock essentially boils down to him being a victim of his own success, because when you go to Omaha 4 times in 5 years, and then you do something like losing a regional final to a team that goes to Omaha or goes to the national championship game in Omaha, people go, oh, well, it's trending down. Okay, yeah, it's trending down from top 2.5% nationally to, like, top 6 or 7% nationally, like, however you want to look at that. We all would have cut off our left pinky toe to be top 6 or 7% in any sport, men's or women's. Like, football, we're closer to bottom 6 or 7% in the Power 5 historically than we are top 6 or 7. It'd be like if Joey made it to the 4-team college football playoff 3 times and then, like, 2 seasons later loses in the Big 12 championship game. Be like, hey, well, do we need to start asking questions here about how Joey's running the football program? No. Losing in the Big 12 championship game would still be the best season our football team has basically ever had in the modern era. So, like, have we trended down? Yeah, technically, from the pinnacle of the sport. So I'm just not that worried about it in one season. That if you want to, like, I don't know, dive into this season, I would encourage you to listen to the 23 personnel season recap episode from maybe a week or 2 ago with Keith Patrick. So I'm not going to get into all of that, but like I told people, I was like, we could have 3 more seasons like this before I'm kind of like, hey, do we need to make some adjustments? People just kind of assume that if you're a head coach who had success before NIL and portal, that there's just no way you can adapt to. Like, Tim Tadlock was a head coach at the JUCO level,
right?
Made the transition to D1, like to act like these guys have never made an adjustment in their careers before is, I think, very naive. I've seen some stuff about how he's all fat and happy with a lifetime contract. Again, I think we the fans can't really fathom how competitive these guys are. I promise you, Tim Tadlock doesn't have a crappy baseball season to go home and go, well, at least the checks are still clearing. He's like, no, I want to freaking win next year. Worse than any of these fans criticizing me on Twitter want to win. I can promise you that. So I feel like there hasn't been enough pushback on how stupid some of these takes are, and like the blanket response when you say something stupid about sports, like, well, don't tell me how to fan. I'm not. Like, you can feel however you want, but I don't have to acknowledge it as like a valid or smart opinion on it. So give me 3 more just seasons in the absolute gutter before I'm worried at all about baseball. I just like I can't be compelled to be upset or worried about the 3rd best coach in school history just because you think like, oh, he doesn't know what he's doing with NIL and portal. Maybe he's not on the cutting edge of it, but he's either going to look around and see that like that's the way it's going or not. But like he's still 100% earned the credibility and the respect to do it his way. Like we've been playing baseball for 90 years or whatever, 80, 85 years. He's got by far the 4 best seasons, probably the 5th, 6th, 7th best season. I guess we won some conference championships in years where like Tadlock goes to the regional final and we don't win the conference championship. But it's just insane to me. Like, and I feel like there was not really a strong enough condemnation of the stupid Tadlock takes out there or like defensive Tadlock. And he doesn't need a bunch of like Twitter trolls coming to his defense or anything, but it's astonishing to me to see like, so a comparison is some fans are like kind of now leaning toward like, well, if Tadlock can't get done, or if we have another season like this, or like they're kind of saying like, well, I'd be okay if Texas poached him or if he wasn't the coach anymore in 2 or 3 years. And then our softball coach, whose best season here was Tadlock's worst season here, he leaves and people are like, hey, what's going on? We got to find a way to keep these guys. I was like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
It makes 0 sense to me.
By the way, the softball coach, if you haven't heard, left today. Took a assistant coach position at Tennessee, and as recently as 25, 6, 7 hours ago now, was liking tweets from Seeing Scarlet about the softball program here at Texas Tech and retweeting things, and that's how quick some of this stuff moves. Craig Snyder, his name, leaving to Tennessee. That search is ongoing now. And there's so many takes on the softball program and everything else. And I saw a lot, we don't have to get into it, but I saw a lot of people hammering Kirby Hocutt today. Like the last 2 coaches that have left the softball program were because of lack of commitment to them. They were fired for being crazy, right? I'm remembering that correctly. And then Stallings as well. Now, maybe that's lack of oversight, but it's not lack of commitment. So, Craig Snyder, if you don't want to be here, leave. Fine. Texas Tech has the number 2 recruiting class in the country coming in. Hopefully that stays intact. Somebody asking in the mailbag already, how many people are following Snyder? No idea. But I will say this. Snyder leaving to an SEC program for an assistant job to be with his fiance says more about the gap between the SEC and the Big 12 than it does about Texas Tech in particular. The SEC is on another level. They're in another stratosphere. People say that about the Big 10 and the SEC and other sports. It's true in softball. It's just a ridiculous divide, especially with Texas and Oklahoma going to the SEC in softball. So, by the way, they just played for national championship. You think people would complain about Patty Gasso if she didn't win the SEC in year 1? She's won 4 national championships in a row and has 8 total. The answer is yes. Oklahoma fans would complain.
Imagine being a senior at OU. Like, you commit and win 4 natties. That's wild.
Yeah, 5 freshmen, sophomore, junior, seniors, all the way through. 5 players stayed all the way through to win 4 national championships. 3 were in the top 4, I think, hitting all time, or 2 were in the top 3, and then 1 was in the top 9. So 3 of the top 9 hitters of all time at Oklahoma all at the same time. It's pretty good. And the number 1 hitter just left last year, the year before. Halo.
I've definitely done that on NCAA 14 a couple times where, like, even a redshirt freshman, like you came through here, you won 5 conference titles, 5 national championships. I think in some instances didn't lose a game.
I couldn't stay at a place that long.
You never stayed more than 5 years?
I won too much. Once I got them built and they were cooking, I'm out, man.
See, I like to build and then dominate for a good while. When it's like literally no longer even a challenge, that's when I go somewhere else. But I like to be dynastic before I leave.
No, I like I think the longest I stayed somewhere was Maryland. But I usually had dynasties with other people, and I didn't win 4 or 5 national championships in a row.
Do y'all agree with me on Tadlock? Like, worry meter 0 to 100%. I'm at like 0.1%. The only reason I'm not 0 is because we missed the postseason this year. But it's like it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah,
not that it doesn't matter to me, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's not worth it to worry yet. No, I'm definitely more worried than you are, but only because of the state of college baseball as a whole. I don't think it's Tadlock's fault. But if you go back, who won the last Big 12 Pitcher of the Year for Texas Tech? Brandon Birdsell. Where did he start his career?
Is he a JUCO guy?
A&M, San Jacinto, and then came to Texas Tech. So he did go through the JUCO, but started at A&M, ended at Texas Tech. Bryce Bonnet, great pitcher. One of the reasons you got to the Super against Stanford, probably the main reason, was on that 2020 team that was just absolutely stacked. It was on the 2019 team before it. Where did he start his career? Arkansas or A&M, one of the two. So it's not like Tadlock hasn't been doing it. Patrick Monteverde, your best starter of that season. Andrew Morris, one of your best starters of that season, all through the portal. So it's not like Tadlock hasn't been doing it at a high level. He's just missed on some pitching and has had ridiculous injuries in the last 2 seasons that people just don't talk about. If you had Tabor Fast and Zane Petty and Trendon Parrish and Jack Washburn from last year into this year, all healthy at the same time, this season probably goes quite a bit differently.
Yeah, I mean, the best bat last year, Gavin Cash, all conference type season, 20 whatever ding dongs, transfer. Your leadoff hitter the last 2 years, Issa Morrell, Nolan Hester, transfers. And like you tried it this year. I mean, you took now maybe, I don't know, maybe like from an NIL front, we didn't do enough to keep a guy like Mason Molina or Hudson White. But like you took Jack Washburn out of the transfer portal. You took that Abilene Christian guy. He like barely even pitched for you. So I don't know. I'm with you, Rob. I kind of disagree with this notion that like they're just pulling a Dabo and just saying like pretending the portal isn't even there. And you're talking about how the SEC is just in a different universe. Look at some of these regionals and super regionals hosted by SEC or ACC teams. Like the facilities are markedly different. Like you're not swimming in the same waters as some of these schools that you would like to be competing with in the postseason, which I think in some ways makes the 4 trips to Omaha even more impressive. Like you're doing it without top end resources that some of these other schools enjoy. Like you're doing it without 15,000 fans at a regional. You're doing it without the nicest locker room or practice facilities that the top prospects are, probably more inclined to be attracted to. So anyway, I'm basically at a 0 for baseball worry level, and it'll take a lot more than one bad season to
for Tadlock
for me.
For Tadlock or baseball, because I think those are 2 conversations. Because
yeah, I agree with what you're saying
about the baseball program.
Yeah, but there's nothing Tadlock can do about the college sports landscape, and there's nothing his hypothetical replacement, can do about it either. So,
or facilities or anything else, he can't build the facilities himself.
Right. That's most of my list. I'll make one more Patreon plug because y'all know this, and fans probably feel this from a different standpoint. Other fans that don't do their own podcasts. This is what we call the dog days of summer. Yeah, sometimes there's not a lot to talk about. Sometimes it's your sports stuff is boring. I'm going to make a promise to keep off season as not boring as possible. We have a new series dropping tomorrow, Monday, June 10th, on our Patreon. It's called Dog Days, and we're just going to talk about what I think are interesting off-season football topics that, maybe we create some narratives or storylines ahead of this season, some stuff to watch, some interesting data that we didn't get to in the middle of last season. So if you want to follow along with that to not be bored during the dog days of summer, join us on Patreon, patreon.com/Gamblin Gauchos.
Is that Florence and the Machine hit there?
That's a great song. Yeah. It's actually, I think it was the ancient Greek and Romans referred to the 40 hottest days of the year as dog days because Sirius, the star or the constellation, I think Sirius somehow translates to his nickname, the dog star. And it was like most visible during those 40 days of summer. That's where the term originates. But sports fans use it as like, hey, there's nothing going on except like OTAs and the Olympics. We get the Olympics this summer, so that's fun.
Very pumped for the Olympics. The more you know, though. I learned where the term "jump the shark" came from today.
Yeah, is that from Cheers?
No, it's from Happy Days.
That's what I meant.
Fonzie jumped an actual shark on skis, water skis.
Yeah.
Hey. Money, you doing okay over there?
Watching the Mavs just hand away a game.
Yeah, they are giving it away right now. Down
Luka's
9.
having an incredible game, and everyone else is just salting this way. It's hard to watch.
It's not great.
I can't decide if the Celtics are like historically good or just total frauds lucking their way into this.
Somebody was saying the other day that they were one of the greatest teams of all time because of how they've gone through the playoffs, and I just do not see that. Do not see it at all. All right, some local news from when you were gone, Kyle. Eric Ward announced as the new head coach of the Estacado Matadors. People in Lubbock love hiring Texas Tech grads. I know you're happy about this, Kyle. Where would you rank Eric Ward as an all-timer?
I can actually tell you if you'll give me just a second here.
You don't have to spoil that, but we can. I was trying to get back to the all-time list we wanted to talk about. We are doing. Well, we are. Kyle's doing the top 100 players.
Yeah, you'll know in about 2.5 weeks.
Okay. That's pretty high for Eric Ward. The deep ball king, I feel like he made 50-50 balls like 90-10 balls. He was really good at that, catching the fade. Of course, they were chunking it up.
Some of these, though, I don't know. I feel like you and I finalized this top 100 list, and then like the day that it was time to publish somebody's tweet, I was like, I don't know. So full transparency, Seth Dagey was supposed to be today at 83. And I was like re-looking at it, I was like, he's better than that. And a lot of people might not agree with that. I can make a case he's super underrated, but I was looking at some of his stats, specifically his completion percentage is like all-time good.
Yeah.
But the teams he played for wasn't very good, so he didn't get the all-conference kind of recognition. So I moved him up, and I'm probably going to do that throughout this because I'm like, I'll look up 5 spots and be like, no, I think actually this guy's better than that guy.
On Seth Dagey, what are the 2 best wins since 2009 in Texas Tech football history?
Yeah, number 3 OU in Norman broke a 39-game home win streak for them at Owen Field. Yeah. And number 4 West Virginia at the Jones, their first year in the Big 12.
And who was playing quarterback?
Seth Dagey.
Twice.
And that was part of our criteria was moments of peak greatness. So even though neither of those seasons wound up as anything to write home about, 2011 missed a bowl game. 2012, I think, won the Meineke Car Care Bowl. Those individual games of peak greatness, like you said, we haven't had a win over that high of a ranked opponent since.
And then just speaking of accuracy, was it New Mexico? He was 40 of 44, I believe.
Yeah. I think it was 90.9% NCAA record for, a certain number of passes or more. But he was like, I never even knew this about him. He's 4th in Big 12 history in completion percentage. He's 10th in NCAA history in completion percentage. Again, over a certain threshold of, like, we don't talk about him like he's a top 10 accuracy guy ever in the sport, but he is.
That's crazy. Do you know his little brother grew up in Lubbock and wanted to go to Texas Tech?
What?
Yep.
I feel like they would have mentioned that on a broadcast.
Any names that you were surprised to put on the list? Maybe not like the older guys that you're just kind of learning about, but is there like a recent guy you're like, oh yeah, that guy top 100? He was pretty good. I forgot about him.
Pete Robertson. He was one that I thought was that I was going to list and kind of be like, well, there's some recency bias there. Once I dig into like the 1940s, he's probably going to fall off. But I mean, at least the way we looked at it and the criteria we chose to weigh and consider, he was on there at number, I think, 89 or 91, perhaps. Trying to think of who else. Oh, I kind of thought that some air raid running backs were a little bit overrated, just because they were there during the record-setting offenses.
Yeah.
But you look at some of the numbers that guys like Baron Batch put up, just how good they were at both running the ball and catching out of the backfield, something that like we haven't seemed to really replicate since then. So a lot of those guys, I thought like, oh yeah, again, that's a recency bias pick. But once we considered everyone, they were still up there. So you'll see guys like that too.
You also had Brandon Sharp, who had, like P. Robertson, a one great year of sacks. And then Ed Mooney. I met Ed Mooney. He was on I want to say the Steve Dale morning show that I produced. And I think it was pickleball, but it was so far before everyone else got into pickleball. I want to say it was maybe even racquetball, now that I'm thinking about it. But he went and like competed in nationals of pickleball way after his football career. So shout out to Ed Mooney. I think he's still around kicking pickleball around.
Yeah, he was an interesting one. Something that I considered was era in which a guy played. And so especially the early Southwest Conference guys, huge step up in competition from the Border Conference, maybe without some of the same resources or all that is, Texas, Arkansas, A&M. And he was one of the very first all Southwest Conference defensive players we had. And I think the first linebacker, because I think E.J. Holub made all conference as a center, but not a linebacker at the time. So, yeah, I think pretty special career. And he was only there for 2 years. I think he must have been like a junior college transfer or something. So, yeah, that was another cool part of this, just like learning about guys I had never even heard of that were like 3 times all Border Conference. And to me, one of the hardest things to do was comparing stats across eras because the leading passer, once he set the school record for passing yards in a season with like 500, and then Cody Hodges throws for that in one game, 60 years later. It's hard to kind of weigh stuff like that, but we did our best, and I think we said at the outset, like, there's how in the world do you actually do this scientifically? Or so if you want to like scream at me like, oh, you're wrong, this guy's better, like, okay, yeah, you might be right. There's really no way to know.
When you even look defensively, like let's say Ed Mooney had 50 tackles in a season. Well, they're running 35 plays a game back then instead of 95 plays a game. So there's just so much more opportunity to tackle too in today's game, which you don't really think about. You just think of the quarterbacks, so they pass more, or the wide receivers are wide receiving more. They're catching more. But yeah, defensively, you have more opportunity too. Ed Mooney had a brief NFL career too, and it was racquetball. He's in the racquetball scene, not the pickleball scene. Still,
Gotcha. Yeah, and another thing that was kind of tough to consider was when somebody set a record. Like, to me, not all records are the same. So, like Brandon Sharp, you mentioned him, still holds the single season sacks record. But this is not a shot at Brandon Sharp. It's not a shot at any defensive player who's come through here. The defensive records at Texas Tech, minus maybe Tracy Saul's interceptions record, pale in comparison to the passing and receiving records and rushing records, for that matter, from the 90s when you had James Gray, Bam Morris, Byron Hansford. So it's like it's not the same as setting like the single season passing yards record at Texas Tech. It's just not. I mean, you could look at our 6th or 7th best quarterback in school history, our 12th best receiver in school history, and they were like higher in the national rankings than Brandon Sharp was in sacks while setting the all-time sacks record for a single season.
Do you know that single season number? Don't say it.
I think so.
Money, what would you guess the single season record is at Texas Tech for sacks?
25.
I think it's close to 13.
I thought it was 15. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a good season. That's like a first-team all-conference season.
Yeah.
But you don't look at that and go, "Oh wow, he must be the best pass rusher that school has ever had." Then you look at like Harrell's records and go, "Okay, yeah, like that would set the record at any school." I guess that's what I'm trying to say is like you put Graham Harrell or Michael Crabtree at any other school in the country, they still hold that school record. You put Brandon Sharp at other schools in the Power 5, and like there's a good chance he's not the single season sacks record holder.
There were 2 years in the Big 12, I think, with Cliff's defenses where he had back-to-back seasons of Big 12 sack leaders with Pete Robertson, you already mentioned, and Brandon Jackson. I think both those guys went back-to-back sack leaders in the Big 12, but it was like 12 and 13 sacks. It was just I'm not saying a down year for sack artists, but those are the top two.
The record for most sacks in a collegiate season is 20, by the way. So my guess was probably a little ambitious.
So a good way to view that, in my opinion, is he's at 75% of the record.
Yeah.
So somebody would have to throw for like, let's see, okay, if Graham Harrell throws for 5,000 yards, somebody else throwing for like what, 3,750, which like 3,750 in a season is good, but we've had a million quarterbacks come through here since 2000 and do that. So I don't know. It's not quite the same to me to say that like any guy who set the career record or the school record or a single season record to weigh that all equally, because like Crabtree's records are not the same as Brandon Sharp's. Yeah. No offense to Brandon Sharp.
No offense.
He's tied in a group for looks like 22nd most in a season.
Okay. So that's like that's actually better than I thought. That's like top third of the Power 5. If every school had one guy in the top 65, which I'm sure they don't, tied for 22nd would be like top third of that. So it's a great season. I wish he would have. I think he left for the draft a year early. I wish he would have come back and had 15 more sacks. Then he probably would have been a lot higher on the list.
All right, me and Money have seen the list. Kyle, who is the all-time sack leader single season in the NCAA?
Oh, shoot.
I'll give you a year if you want it.
Can I ask for a couple other hints that are not as much of a reveal as the year?
Yeah.
Is he a Power 5 player?
No, not at the time.
Shoot.
Also going to say this. Are you looking at the sports reference page?
Yes.
This is since 05.
Okay.
Oh, interesting.
So a group of 5 guys since 05. Oh, is it Khalil Mack from Buffalo?
It is not. It's a good guess. Khalil Mack. I don't see his name actually, so maybe not a good guess.
Is this for a career or for a season?
For a single season.
Okay. Give me the season.
2005.
Oh, geez. Okay. Oh, 2005. I don't know. I don't think I'm going to get this.
He was drafted by the Denver Broncos. And I believe he also played with the Ravens.
Drafted by the Broncos.
He's got a famous first name.
I don't know. I might recognize it when you tell me, but I'm drawing a blank.
The famous first name didn't give anything away there.
I'm trying to think back.
Let's say he's all shook up, Kyle.
Oh, Elvis Dumervil?
Elvis Dumervil, yeah.
Yeah, Louisville, right?
Louisville, yeah.
Okay, that's right. Okay, you said not Power 5 at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember I guess I've been a hot take merchant since I was a kid, but I remember like seeing his sacks numbers. I was like, this guy, he should be a Heisman finalist right up there with Vince Young. And it's like, let's put some respect on these defensive players.
The Big East. He had 36 tackles solo, and 20 of them were sacks.
That's wild.
He also had an interception.
How many tackles for loss did he have?
22.
Okay. So not a run stuffer at all. Just
no.
That's funny.
And I'm going to be honest, if you asked me to give you the top 10, I would have named 2. I probably would have gotten 3, but I don't recognize a bunch of these other guys.
Is Mario Williams on there?
Not in the top 10. Not really even. No. He's tied with 27th.
Okay.
14.5. I'll run some names you'll recognize. Will Anderson Jr. just recently in 2021 had 17.5. Josh Allen had 17 at Kentucky in 2018. You would know who tied with him, also of the Denver Broncos fame, drafted in 2009.
Was that Von Miller?
Von Miller.
Coached by Tim DeRuyter, by the way.
Chase Young. Harold Landry. I thought he was going to be way better in the NFL. Drafted by the Titans. Man, there's names, man.
Is former Vikings first-round pick Erasmus James on there? From Wisconsin?
Not near the top.
He wasn't very good in the pros, so that doesn't surprise me.
Wisconsin. Build a mansion. All right. All right, we're going. I'm really leading us off track here. Anyways, the top 100 coming down. Very exciting stuff. Who do we have to look forward to maybe in the next couple of weeks? You want to drop some hints for the people?
Yeah, there will be a receiver who, when his playing career concluded, he might have been top 3 at his position, and he might not have been 3. Unfortunately, that was right at the beginning of an era where we had a ton of receivers put up insane production. So you'll see him. He's one of those that at first glance you might go, what? He's way too low. And then you think about how many other guys at his position. We've got some love for the defensive line. I think we've got a quarterback that people are going to think is too low. And we've got a guy who's coaching in the state of Texas right now. That's a good, I think, set of hints for the next week or so.
Is Baker Mayfield on the list?
He is not, yeah.
I saw a TikTok list today of top 5 quarterbacks to ever play at Texas Tech, and Baker Mayfield was number 3.
If it's phrased that way, to ever play at Tech, then depending on if you're
it was top 5. I worded it in the wrong. It was top 5 Texas Tech quarterbacks.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a poor list.
I wouldn't do that.
I think Mahomes, Graham, Harrell were 1 and 2. Graham number 1. And then BJ was 5. I don't remember who 4 was, but Baker 3 off. All right, in the NCAA locker room talk of the offseason, we got some visual cues from the Red Raider renovations. And first of all, there was a comment on a quote tweet of ours from the locker rooms talking about how bad the locker room looked. There's no ceiling put in yet. Like, it's just lockers. I think the floor is still concrete. Just wait a minute there, bud. I think they'll look fine when they're finished. And that's going to be used 1 day a week, 7 days a year, 7 weeks a year. It's just the game day locker room. And maybe they use it in practice or whatever else. But that's the game day locker room. It's not their daily locker room. The daily locker room will look a lot different. But what is interesting is that on the seat of the locker is the leveled bevel flat double T. And on the door of the locker, cubby, is the masked rider reared back with the flat double T. Money, Kyle, does this mean that the uniforms incoming on July 1st potentially are flat double T and a rebrand is coming? Yes or no? Coincidence or something different?
No, it doesn't mean it's coming, but I hope it does.
I just got back from the University of Wisconsin in lovely Madison. By the way, the weather there is always in the 70s in June. It's great. And they have the red W that you're familiar with for Wisconsin is about 10% maybe of the W logos that you see on campus there. They have a totally different font with like a seal that they use all over campus on their academic buildings. And like that logo is exclusively for sports teams and sports apparel. I feel like that has been part of the pushback on this is like, well, if we change the logo, do you know how many double T's are on campus that you have to switch out? To which I say, like, you don't. You could keep the 3D as like an academic logo if it's on a building or painted somewhere. Just keep it. And then just put the flat one, at midfield and all the double T's in the stadium, put on the uniforms. You're redoing the uniforms anyway. Seems like it's just as much work to put an old school double T sticker on the helmet than it is a new school double T sticker on the helmet. I hope so. I hope when you see that stitched onto the seats that it's an indication that that is going to become the permanent logo. Now, I'll say this. Patrick Mahomes obviously partnering with Adidas to supply our new uniforms. There it is. That's the Wisconsin W.
You're telling me you don't want this on the Wisconsin helmet? Mirror looking ass logo.
It's weird to me, but they put that logo all over campus, and you don't see the red W that like you remember from like Ron Dane's helmet.
Yeah.
Unless you go into like a sporting goods store. It's weird. It's like not what I expected.
Interesting.
Mahomes and Adidas doing the new uniforms, which is great. In that sense, they can look like whatever they want as long as it's affiliated with Mahomes. I think it's still a good move. But I'll take you back to the days of Patrick Mahomes when he played quarterback here. And I'm pretty sure y'all remember this. This was talked about all over the place that Cliff Kingsbury, in his contract as our head coach, had full control over the uniforms.
Yes.
However, I think it was pretty widely known that he delegated that to the team and let the team captains or maybe like a player of the week or whatever kind of decide on the uniform. So when there was a blackout, a whiteout, a gray out, Lone Star Pride, that was kind of like a player-led initiative. Now, y'all might not remember uniforms from 9 years ago, and I wouldn't blame you if you don't. But let's go back to Patrick Mahomes' junior season, in which we beat Arkansas and Texas in the same year for the first time since 1976.
Yep.
Remember what uniforms we were wearing on the road at Arkansas and on the road at Texas?
Black helmets, white jerseys, black pants, throwback logo on the side, stripes on the sleeves.
I think if you told me ahead of the two biggest games of that season, I take it back. You played TCU and they were number 3. We wore red for the first time in the Kingsbury era of that game. They actually warmed up in all black, went to the locker room, changed into red, and came out. Where was I going with that? Oh, yeah. It wouldn't be too far-fetched that Cliff Kingsbury leaned on his quarterback and said, hey, big game at Arkansas. We've got these Southwest Conference era throwbacks. You want to wear them for the – and Mahomes saying, yeah, those are sweet. Let's wear them at Arkansas. And then, hey, last game of the season is at their place. Should we bust out our favorite uniforms? Yeah, let's do it. I'm just saying if Mahomes kind of helped choose those uniforms for those two big games in 2015 when he was a player here, and he's fond of the old school double T, and he's helping Adidas and Texas Tech design these uniforms, I think far crazier things have happened than Patrick Mahomes saying we need to put the old school double T on these and make them look like the 90s era throwbacks. To me, that's a totally believable storyline.
I agree. I think it's more than coincidence that the benches and doors of the Cubbies are in throwback style of the Jones, which is where they play the games, that they will be wearing the uniforms.
We don't do a lot of scoop on here. We're not insiders, and this isn't scoop, but it's a little nugget.
Insider. Go ahead.
I've seen pictures of a black Adidas backpack with an old school double T on it.
Cue Antonio Banderas gif.
I'm not saying it's happening. I'm saying if it does, in hindsight, some of the steps that led to it will not be a surprise at all. You'll go, oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Agreed. The Mavs are making money very angry.
What's going on, money?
Luka just decided to throw it to Drew Holiday, which immediately led to a 3 as soon as the Mavs had some positive momentum.
That's no good. Hey, we got Bob Trollsby in the house.
Shout out to Bob Trollsby. Anything happening on the Kansas State recruiting front this week?
Did y'all see Matt Wells, now the offensive coordinator at Kansas State, is like offering kids from West Texas?
Oh, he started doing that?
Yeah.
Is he building a fence around West Texas?
Oh, gosh. Ricochet shot at Matt Wells there, but
Kyle. Money. We've got a Fong bomb. You guys know what a Fong bomb is?
I learned today what a Fong bomb is.
So we've got a Fong bomb. I feel like I need a... Man, I really need to fix my board. Cue air horn sound effect. Wah, 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 wah. That's going to get clipped. Smith Orogbo, a 4-star, 6'4", 210 edge in the 2025 class, who did not start playing football until his freshman year of high school, is projected by Scott Wiltfong, the originator of the Fong bomb, as a Texas Tech commit. Crystal ball season. He is the 13th edge in the class, 90th overall prospect in the class, 15th in the state of Texas as the industry standard. 7th recruit in the state of Texas, according to On3. 3rd edge in the class, 26th in the country, according to On3. He's a 95 4-star, according to that service, his highest ranking.
No dig on Mr. Fong here, but it's kind of funny that in the bottom left of this graphic, there's a very small confidence meter that says 60%. And I love that we're doing recruiting bombshells with 60% confident predictions.
I feel like that's more of a Fong gong than a Fong bomb. Like when there's a Woj bomb, it's like this is happening and it's big news. Not like
Yeah.
there's a 60% chance that Dan Hurley's going to the Lakers. So I feel like you've got to calibrate. Like Fong Bomb, if you're 100% Fong Gong, like, make a little noise with the gong if you're pretty sure. But it would be cool. Number 26 nationally feels like it's not that far behind Micah Hudson. What was he, top 10 nationally?
Yeah, around there. Yeah, 12th maybe.
And that makes me feel like, especially if this guy only started playing his freshman year, like if he goes to some camps this summer, kills it his senior year, he might be on the cusp of like top 20. I think Cheeto Philly and Ellis Davis from the last class were also like top 50, top 100 type guys on three, which on three is like the new shiny toy. I don't know. I kind of err on the side of on three now instead of rivals 24/7. I'm sure there's somebody's probably done the study on like who is better at projecting to the next level, but
It's accurate. Yeah.
and it's especially cool because earlier in the day, you lost out on an offensive tackle prospect who committed to TCU, and now you got a guy that can just go right around him at TCU. So congrats to TCU on your 4-star offensive lineman, but now we have a 4-star defensive end who's just going to rush the edge right around him. So it helps kind of take away the sting a little bit.
Yeah, and I believe that is the second commit of the day.
If this Fong Gong is true and not just 60%
Right.
true.
Yes, there was an actual commitment. I was trying to say the gong was also in the mix, but let me get back to Chase Sims. Chase Sims, a 6'3", 300-pound junior from Randall. A two-time first-team All-District defensive tackle in the mix. Was that the commitment? Now here I am. I'm this is not good. This is bad. Bad radio. Let me get back to where did I see this? Somebody help me out here. Kyle, did you see the Brock Golwis? That's what I was trying to look up. Brock Golwis.
I thought he committed a long time ago.
Well, 2 hours
Am I
ago.
misremembering that?
He tweeted home with the pin. Maybe this is just me seeing recruiting things earlier and just not being correct. Maybe I've completely shattered my dependability in the last 5 minutes. I have no idea. Apparently, I have no idea what I'm talking about. Who committed today? There were 2 people that committed today, right?
We got 2 bat signals, yeah.
But we just don't know who committed yet. I just put those together. I put those together. Maybe you're right. I do believe that Brock was already committed. So now we have D. Wayne in the comments. Always makes me feel some type of way.
Brock
yes,
committed in January. Had an OV this weekend.
Okay, well, go listen to Ben Golan for all your recruiting news. Coleman Hawkins watch from Bob Trollsby. That's what I was hinting at earlier. He was making Hunter Dickinson mad on Twitter earlier. I enjoy it. Anything you can do to piss off Hunter Dickinson, I agree with. Let's see. It's easy to forget how good-looking Rob is until Kyle is next to him. Oh, look who decided to show up. Shout out to Kyle. Shout out to Ryan and Rob for holding it down.
And Tech Hoops guy, dog.
And Tech Hoops guy, dog. My phone is absolutely blowing up with texts and calls asking if the new guy on the Gauchos is. Are you guys keeping up with the TST? Kyle, Money, have y'all kept up with the TST? Not to be confused with the TBT.
What is that?
The TBT is the basketball tournament. The TST is the soccer tournament. Pat McAfee was in it. I did keep up with Pat McAfee until he was out of it. So I've not kept up with anything else in the soccer tournament. They're playing on like smaller fields. So I guess it's mildly interesting if you want to watch fast soccer, but I don't think it's like on ESPN Plus or anything. I don't know where to watch it. I was just keeping up with highlights. Mavericks down to 30 seconds, down 7. Luka Doncic with a triple-double. Is that going to be a gentleman's sweep there, Money? Think the Mavs will get one?
I hope so.
I hope so too. Kyle, what else you got cooking over there? You got anything else?
That's my list. I just remembered one. I shouldn't do this to myself because the haters and losers are going to latch onto it. But I think one of my very last episodes, we were talking off-season NFL stuff, Chiefs specifically. And I laid out this beautifully detailed data case that Rashee Rice was going to be a top 5 receiver in the NFL next year. And then Rashee Rice said, the hell I am, like multiple times. So far, it's only early June. I mean, who knows what else he's going to do in the next 2.5 months. So he's not going to play enough games for that to happen. Oops. But that was a swing and a miss from right before my retirement that I just pulled from the memory bank.
Yeah, that's not happening. Money, you got anything else?
D. Wayne has a good question.
What's that?
What Texas Tech football game are we going to this year? I did not join y'all in Wyoming, but if y'all go to a game together this year, I will happily join.
Now we're cooking.
I've got season tickets, so I'm going to sweat my butt off August 31st against Abilene Christian.
I think he probably means road game like the Wyoming game. I will not be in Pullman.
You know, I'm going to push back on that, Rob, because the question explicitly says to see the new South Side end zone for the first time.
Well,
so I was thinking home game.
I didn't read it yet. I was just listening to Money, so that's my bad. Having a bad 5 minutes. Having a bad 5 minutes here.
That's all right.
What game are you guys going to this year to see? Oh, to see that. Okay, all right. Now I'm in. Yeah. So what he said, all of them. Kyle, you know who else came back from retirement? That's from Pancho Loco. Fun fact: the first time that Michael Jordan came back from retirement was to the Wizards. He came back from a gambling suspension the first time. He didn't retire to go to baseball. He was suspended for gambling after the first three-peat. The flu game, he didn't have the flu. He was gambling in Atlantic City all weekend and was hungover.
On the last dance, he said he just had food poisoning.
Likely story, Michael.
I thought that was a youth pastor joke set up there.
You know who else came back from retirement?
I think it was food poisoning.
Days.
You know, MJ played in an era of the NBA where a lot of his opponents were pizza delivery guys, and so he probably got food poisoning from one of his opponents. It's honestly like a great chess move.
Yeah. Who was delivering pizzas on those Jazz teams? I just want to know.
I mean, okay, if I just showed you a picture of John Stockton in a T-shirt and shorts, would you think it's more likely he's an NBA Hall of Famer or a pizza delivery guy?
Steve Nash played several decades later and won a decade later and
That's
won.
not what I asked, Rob. I said if you didn't know who John Stockton was, and I was just standing next to him, I took a picture with my arm around his shoulder, would you think he was a delivery driver or an NBA Hall of Famer?
How tall is John Stockton? Is he 6 foot?
5'9". And the shorts made him look even shorter.
How tall are you? 6'1"?
Yeah, with shoes on.
So that wouldn't be all. Hey, just take a compliment.
John Stockton listed at 6'1".
Okay.
Yeah, so he was 5'9". Okay, if you saw a picture of me and you didn't know who I was, would you think it's more likely that I'm a pizza delivery driver or an NBA Hall of Famer?
How short are the shorts?
They're short, purple shorts with mountains on them.
Delivery guy. I get your point. But the fact is, he was great. He had great court vision and threw a lot of good passes.
Yeah, I think he's the all-time assist leader in league history.
LeBron's coming for it, though.
I think. The one year they made LeBron play point guard in LA, he did average more than 10 assists per game. I think he led the league that year.
All right, UConn looking for a new coach potentially tomorrow. He's going to Dan Hurley was going to take the weekend to decide. If you're the UConn AD, who are you hiring to replace Dan Hurley?
Scott Drew. So my list. If I'm the UConn
domino effect.
If I'm the UConn AD, I'm going Scott Drew, Kelvin Sampson, Jerome Tang.
Are your Mac Rhodes replacing Scott Drew? Who are you looking for?
Tommy Lloyd. King McClure. Maybe what's his name? Doug Gottlieb.
Yeah.
Hire him away from whatever Central Illinois,
Green Bay,
whoever hired him. Okay. Well, no. You don't think Rick Pitino would go to UConn, do you?
I mean, yeah, he would. I don't think they would want him, though. I don't think they would get Rick Pitino.
Who would UConn get?
Money, who do you have? Jeff Goodman said there was one name to call.
Chris Beard?
Bruce Pearl. There's one name on the list, and it's Bruce Pearl.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not doing that. I'm trying to think of a name, but I don't actually think it matters because I think he'll end up staying. But maybe they hire internally.
Yeah, no, it's crazy to say, but for all this chatter about how hard it is on college coaches right now, and I do believe it is with the portal and stuff, I don't know if I would sign up to take the Lakers job, which is like the most prestigious NBA franchise, just because it seems like such a mess. Like, I'm like, why would I leave the back-to-back national champs and sign up for that?
Well, do you feel like he's potentially feels like he's at the pinnacle? What else is there to do besides win 3 in a row?
Yeah, I don't know.
He's like you on NCAA 14.
That's right.
You need something new.
You win 2, you want to do something new. Money, the guy at Rutgers, is it true that he played at UConn?
I have no idea who's at Rutgers.
I didn't think you would. I just was taking a shot in the dark there. There's some coach either in the lower end of the Big Ten or in the Big East somewhere that played at UConn. That's like a hot young name that I saw a couple of times.
What about
go ahead?
What about Ed Cooley? I know he just got to Georgetown, but he doesn't mind spurning a fan base.
That would be the funniest hire. To have that documentary come out and have the Goodman crony say, "How do you look in orange?" And then to have him come just spurn another Big East fan base to go to a third Big East school in, what would that be, 4 years, 3 years? That would be really funny.
And that was Goodman's whole defense. He's like, why wouldn't he leave Providence? It's a better job. It's a better job. Well, UConn's a better job than Georgetown, right?
Yes, it is.
100%. So if you're looking for a guy who has recruited in New England before, won in New England before, like he did it in Rhode Island at a pretty darn high level, why wouldn't you call him if – I don't know. I think he'd be on the list at least. It would be funny if he left Georgetown after 1 year.
Would Billy Donovan go to UConn? People keep saying Billy Donovan to every college job, but he's not left yet.
How about JJ Redick if he winds up being runner-up for the Lakers job? Would he just go coach the college game in UConn? He wouldn't have to move, right? He works for ESPN. He lives up in Bristol, I'm assuming.
Can he still do all his podcasts?
Yeah, he can call Doug Gottlieb for mentorship on how to do a podcast and coach a D1 program at the same time.
Yeah. All right, start, bench, cut, chicken sandwiches, Popeyes, Chick-fil-A, McDonald's. McDonald's is easily the worst chicken sandwich of the 3. Easily. The McChicken, it's a big chicken nugget.
Did y'all see that tweet? The person should have gone to jail for this, but they took the skin off their chicken McNuggets.
Yeah, they undressed the draws of the chicken.
That's what it was.
Yeah. I've never seen somebody take the draws off a chicken nugget.
Like, you need to go to jail for that.
Yeah. I will say I've done that. I've bit the casing off the chicken nugget, just sitting around. Chipmunk in the chicken nugget.
You know, I eat chicken McNuggets.
Yeah.
But I don't really want to make a conscious effort to look at the inside of one, even though I'm willfully eating it. Like, it would gross me out that I probably wouldn't eat them anymore if I saw the inside like fully exposed that way.
It's like a hamburger. Just ground up chicken, pressed together. Eat a hot dog. Hot dog's more dangerous than a chicken nugget.
I think Whataburger's spicy chicken sandwich is underrated.
The buffalo chicken sandwich?
No, just the spicy chicken sandwich. It's the number 12 or number 13, I'm pretty sure.
Haven't had it. I'll have to try it out.
It's pretty good.
I like the Wendy's spicy chicken sandwich.
Getting to know the Gauchos when I had just moved, well, not even moved to Fort Worth, when I took my job in Fort Worth and was driving back to Lubbock every weekend to be with my family. The halfway stop is outside of Abilene, and it's just Whataburger there, basically. Oh, there might be a McDonald's too. So I ate a spicy chicken sandwich at Whataburger like 2 days a week, every week, going back and forth doing that.
We are 18 months away from headboard era, Kyle.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Does it feel like just yesterday to you?
14 months, but yeah, it does feel like just yesterday.
Headboard era.
People love the headboard. I think we need to throw back with a headboard every once in a while.
I'd obviously like seen that headboard several times, but I guess I didn't realize like how large and majestic it was until the comments blew up about that headboard.
They call it George Washington's headboard.
Yeah. It's like I turned around, I was like, hey, you know what? You're kind of right. That is a gigantic headboard.
Majestic.
Made of this like fine, sturdy oak.
No. Nothing like a good hardwood. Final thoughts.
How are the Mavs doing?
They lost.
Dang it.
Did they? What was the final?
105-98.
Yeah.
After like a all-time performance by Luka.
Mavs in 6.
32-11 and 11. Jeez.
Change the chat line name.
We didn't cover what I think is a pretty major topic.
What's that?
I don't know if this video ever surfaced publicly, but there is video of me throwing a football 55 yards indoors at altitude in Laramie, Wyoming. It's probably only like 53.5 yards at sea level. QB1, Baron Morton. I know y'all talked about this, and I don't want to dive into the whole like Florida stuff because y'all covered that on an episode. But I think it was fair to be like, okay, he's parked for the spring. He's seeing the specialist. How concerned should we be about his shoulder? I don't know if he answered it fully, but at least we know in early June he's capable of chucking it 55 yards. I don't know what that means for October and November, but it's better than not knowing if he can throw a ball 55 yards right now. So I took that as a positive. Yeah, just in the sense that it's better than not knowing if he can do that at this stage. Because that was kind of the concern was like, are they telling us that he could finish the spring, but like really he's shut down, or like what's the deal? So I don't know. That seemed like a good offseason surprise.
Yeah, I think I said my worry level was a 6 right after the specialist news. Probably about a 3 after seeing that. And he looked a little stocky in that video too, which is
He's
a good
thick.
thing for a quarterback. Like,
He's
it's not a
thick.
bad thing.
He's been drinking his Ovaltine.
Yeah, we've got Tua and Lamar Jackson thinning out to do more things in the NFL. By the way, Tua, don't run more. You're already on the CTE list. Lamar Jackson too, who's thinning out to run more and be quicker. Don't throw interceptions in the end zone, Lamar. What are you doing? It doesn't matter if you can run in the NFL. I know it's part of your game, but in the clutch time, you have to throw the ball. Now, Baron Morton potentially threw one pass inside and one pass outside. I'm sure this was part of a program where they were throwing for 30, 45 minutes, maybe an hour, inside, outside. Maybe they threw 1,000 balls that day, and his shoulder was perfect. Let's see him get driven into the turf a couple of times and get back up and throw it 50 yards before I change any kind of worry level. I'm still at what was I at 7? I'm still right there. The history since 2017 of Texas Tech quarterbacks. Do I love Baron Morton? Yes. Do I think he's a great quarterback? Potentially. Would I like to see him for a full season? Yes. So talk to me in week 6 or 7 before we start changing my mind about anything.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think also, if I understood the article correctly about him going to the specialist in Florida, it was more about his recovery. It was like, he can throw it 50 times, but then like it's really sore. So, okay, yeah, he can make a couple of social media throws. That's better than him not being able to do that right now. But like if he made those throws for the camera, which I don't think they would let him do, and then like today, now he can't throw because his shoulders, like then that is basically a sign of zero improvement. I don't think that's the case. Like I said, I feel better after seeing those videos. Doesn't mean I think that like the concern is gone, but yeah, I mean it's all about. And I mean, hey, he could take a sack and roll his ankle. Like it doesn't even have to be the shoulder. Injuries happen, so like the offensive line needs to play better regardless of Barron's recovery ability with his shoulder. So yeah, I mean, I think you're making a fair point to it. It certainly doesn't just make the whole thing go away, but it's better than him not being able to make that throw right now.
I want to get through a few mailbag questions. Again, if you want to hear the whole mailbag, patreon.com/Gamblin Gauchos. We also need to tell you who Rashee Rice can call in a minute. But first, who is Kyle?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. If we had new listeners sometime in the last 3 months who heard y'all referencing like, oh, Kyle is in the church Easter play this evening or whatever, they're probably like, who's that? And then like 3 or 4 episodes later, they're like, oh, they mentioned Kylie and what's going on. And now they're probably like, I don't know, is this like an old friend of theirs? Like, no, I'm a co-host of this podcast. I have been since 2021. So if you're new here, I mean, it's nice to meet you, but yeah, we're back.
Another question: why is Kyle?
You'd have to ask God. I know why.
When is Kyle?
1993 till God calls me home. Again, a lot of these are up to God. They're not up to me. So
My high school athletic director said, what are you going to do with your dash? You got a birth date and a death date. What are you going to do with your dash?
I like that.
What is Kyle?
Kyle is a podcast host and a father of 2.
How is Kyle?
Pretty good. Thank you for asking.
And then the final one, where is Kyle? He's right here on the podcast. Well, there's one more. It just says Kyle.
Yeah.
No answer to that?
My answer is yes. I don't know. Is that a yes or no question?
Is the indoor Texas Tech practice field a full football field or is it short? I saw that video on X and was counting the yardage he threw. I was trying to as well, but it's not a full field. It's but I mean I think it was a good 50-yard throw.
Yeah, I think it's an 80-yard field, and I did my best to count the 5-yard dash lines. I think it was a 55 to 60-yard throw, but it's hard to tell.
Yeah. All right, any other final thoughts? Do you want to have a final thought on Barnett Howard or Williams, or do you want me to do it?
Just join us on Patreon if you want to have some fun this offseason. That's my final thought.
You don't have too much fun. If you find yourself having too much fun, you need somebody to help you out of a sticky situation. Barnett Howard or Williams is always there for you. They don't want you to have to call, but you can always call them. They are based in Fort Worth, but do work across the great state of Texas. Criminal defense, personal injury, family law, Title IX, and more. BHWLawFirm.com for more information. They're great people. Good people. Double Texas Tech grads. Money, did you have any final thoughts?
Mavs in 7.
I love it. Mavs and 7.
Heck yeah.
We forgot one time, Kyle. I don't know if you noticed on a Patreon episode to say the closing words. But since you're back, I'll let you do it.
Good to be back. Love y'all.